about wholesaling, more real estate specific. This one is not just real estate specific. Well, it kind of is because we're going to highlight house hacking in particular for this one, but this is more like a holistic view of how to bring it all together. Whether you're in debt, going from negative to zero, which is a huge accomplishment. There's being at zero nowadays, right? How to combat inflation, through investing, and as well as how to add in like stocks, real estate. Do you guys hear someone knocking?
Yeah.
Can someone go check the door?
I got it.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Yeah. Wow. A lot of people, they need to know, right? They need to know how to do this stuff. So my story is, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an investor, and I discovered FIRE maybe 3-4 years ago. And then the pandemic hit, and I read a bunch of books on Audible on 3X. I listened to every podcast. I read a shit ton of books. And I definitely put in my hours, right? And to me, I literally didn't know the difference between a 401k and an IRA. I was like, that's for my dad. I don't want to learn that ever, right? And nowadays, Dave and I were just talking about breaking news for Social Security, and I don't know anyone my age that really gives a shit, right? So it's for me, it's come to a guy that hates math, hates spreadsheets, to oh shit, this can change your life. Now it has my attention, right? From as far as, I like to get a baseline. There's not too many people here of where everyone is at. Because it really starts with, before we can talk about what kind of house hack, which by the way, I have a few that we can go over, right? And we can explain the mechanics of that, how to optimize from an investment standpoint. But if you play, all we're gonna do is play with calculators. Here's a house hacking calculator, here's a 30-year, 15-year, 5-year ARM. You can play around with it. We can talk about that all day, how to juice those returns, how to bring in private money, hard money, JV, all that stuff. Off market, on market, subject to seller financing, right? There's all these creative ways to back into the investment that you want. However, it all starts with that number, right? Of, well, how much do I need to cover my expenses? And if you get good at defense, they say defense is the best offense, right? But when you play around with these FIRE calculators, which I'm happy to send you guys as far as the links go, but what happens is, if you, let's say you earn an extra $1,000, right? It'll save, for me, if I go out right now and I go earn $1,000, and I'm gonna be taxed on, by the way, it's a taxable event that you have to consider, right? So if I go do that, and I have that consistently, and that's part of my plan, and I can count on that in my investments to live off of, or what have you, or whatever, it's on my way to my FIRE journey, it's an extra $1,000 per month, right? Which, by the way, has never been easier, right? But that'll only decrease my journey to FIRE by, I think it was 0.7 years, about 6, 7, 8 months, right? Versus if I save $1,000 per month, it doubled, 1.4. And you can extrapolate these little itty bitty numbers to 10,000 a month, 100 grand a month. You know what I mean? You can, whatever your budget is, just know that saving is worth double. And then that's just before you even think about the tax implications of it. So it's really worth more than double, right? So I'm here to tell you probably stuff that you don't want to hear, right? I'll tell you my story, how I can retire off of one house hack. The question is, can you, right? And so I brought my expenses down to, I did a complete reset, and I can talk about it, and, I kind of went a little hard on certain subjects, but other things, I bought a toy poodle, you know what I mean? I definitely, it wasn't in any of the FIRE books, you know what I mean? It is the most expensive dog I've ever come across. It is ridiculously expensive, right? But to me, it's worth it. I didn't want to, I was like, what is all this for? It's so for me, it's that conversation at the end. But rough draft, if you can get your expenses to below, I would say, $1,500, $2,000 a month, either as a family or per person, whatever your example is. That's your personal side, your personal finance, right? But if you can do that, yeah, about one house hack in this market. Depends on which market we're talking about. Depends on the financing. Depends on if you can buy it on points, what your strategy is, and that we have some experts in the room that can help you talk about all these different ways about how to reverse engineer, how to do zero down, zero interest, all the way to all the programs that you guys know about, 3.5, 5, 10, 20, 25% down, right? So there's different ways to get into, effectively the same investment vehicle. I keep needing to bring my tax guy up here, but the tax implications of real estate are huge, right? So if what we're really focusing on right now is cash flow to negate your living expenses, because at the end of the day, if it lives and breathes, it has a P&L, right? And it's like, you just exist, you're forever gonna pay taxes, you're forever gonna have to eat, right? So at a baseline, if you never wanna work again, or work optional, or say fuck you to your employer, or whatever you wanna do, right? Or it's because you need enough money to start your side hustle to then do that. Either way, you gotta know what your numbers are. And then, from a math perspective, it is what it is, right? You either cut down or you don't. I can tell you my story, but everyone here can YouTube how to save, $1,000 on this and that, right? So like, we can go around and share our favorite hacks, which by the way should be a book. That would be an Amazon bestseller, right? Everyone just always wrote down their hacks. It was crowdsourced. I mean, maybe it's on Reddit, I don't know. But, that would be amazing, right? And I definitely have a few good ones. And that's what we're talking about, house hacking, right? But you can hack every single line item, in my opinion, right? Your car can turn into a profit generator if you list it on Turo, right? Like, you can flip that around. I just got rid of a car altogether. And I chose to live in a place where I could walk to work, right? To me, that was part of my investment criteria. So you can line up your way, and there's tons of books about this, where you can line up your way to make it easier for yourself. Maybe it's just you live close to work for 2 years. Then you can live wherever you want for the rest of your life, right? Through that savings, through the tax savings, through the no more rent savings, you're saving 20, 40. I mean, I know the average rents, right? It's what I do for a living. Let's say they're around $2,000. I mean, you guys are saving quite a bit, right? Once the light clicks on about the tax savings and how it snowballs, and then you can refi against that same real estate over and over, as the market, increases, this is how your real estate starts paying for your next real estate, right? And so it's self-scaling. I feel like I got a little ranty there, so does anyone have any questions so far? Anything you guys want to jump into right away? Do you guys want to look at some examples of house hacks? Do you guys have any questions?
I'm curious what you did to cut down your costs. You say you stopped your card payments. Did you cut anything else out, like going out?
Yeah. So, it was a pandemic, and Netflix kind of got me with some documentaries. I'm not gonna lie, that should have came with a warning, in my opinion. But yeah, I got introduced to minimalism, so that was a big deal. I completely reset. Pretty much, I donated almost everything, and I completely bought new when I moved into this house hack. Right? I was like, it's the perfect kind of opportunity to do that. I was moving anyways, so I kind of leaned into that because I wasn't about to Marie Kondo it. I was just like, I'm out. Let me just start over. And then, what else? Yeah, I got rid of my car, so that was huge, and that's been about 4 years now.
So no car as a realtor?
No car as a realtor.
Wow.
As a top producing realtor.
Damn.
That's right. So we're out there, right? But I realized that that time was better spent with me on the laptop in the backseat than me schmoozing and schlepping all over town, right?
Yeah.
Besides, you can talk, you can go over graphs and numbers, the appreciation rates on the way to the next neighborhood, literally in real time, right?
Yeah.
So to me, it was just a better use of my time, and that's always the question: what's the best use of your capital? Capital including time, right? It's a little intense to look at it through that filter, but at the end of the day, if you do, you'll look at food that way. You'll look at food as fuel, and what's your cheapest bite per calorie in, right? It's like, when you're broke, you know that, right? It's like, you can make it work, right? I'm real cheap, right? You can make $1 stretch. I used to get paid, and then it would all be gone, and then I would stretch that last $10 for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? It was crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So, there's these concepts that you have to consider in terms of an emergency fund as well, right? So at first you kind of need, I would say, cash, but then you can look at a HELOC as a form of an emergency fund if needed, right? So down the line you free up your capital, and then it's like, where's your capital sitting? Is it in a high yield savings account? Is it invested? Is it just sitting there? Why is it just sitting there, right?
What's a HELOC?
It's a home equity line of credit.
Gotcha.
And yeah, Dave, you wanna explain what a HELOC is?
Yeah, so the first thing, you've gotta own a piece of property. Primary residence would be ideal. And then when you, over time, you'll gain equity for various reasons. Could be market conditions, could be paying down the loan, whatever. So you've got a first mortgage in place, and the definition of equity is always the market value of the property minus your first lien or mortgage, okay? So if your house is worth $400,000 and you have a $200,000 first mortgage, you've got $200,000 in equity. But when you apply for a line of credit, you get to borrow out of that top 200 a certain portion. But you can only go up to 80% of the total value. So 80% of the total value would be
320.
340?
320.
320? Okay, I can't do math in my head. So 320, so if you have a $200,000 first mortgage and it's worth 400 and 320 is the 80% level, that means you've got 120,000 available for a line of credit. That line of credit, when you apply for it and you get approved and you close and you sign the paperwork, now it's like having a gigantic credit card. It doesn't cost you anything to keep it open with a zero balance. Well, it does, $50 annual fee, but that's, just ignore that. You don't have to use it ever. I recommend anybody that has any equity, go get a line of credit, because the last thing you want to do is apply for a line of credit when you need it, because now the clock's ticking. I need the money. Just get it, have it in place. It's the quickest, easiest, cheapest money you can get. You're borrowing against your own equity. You want to pay it back quickly. That's a topic for a whole nother day.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I know right now the market's like all over the place, so, and, in terms of what's the risk that at some point you're gonna have to pay all that back at one time?
Yeah, okay, so it has a 10-year draw period, but then after the 10-year draw period, you get 20 more years to pay it back, or 15 more years to pay it back, or whatever. So you can draw it up, pay it down, draw it up, pay it down. You could pay interest only on it and draw it to the max, pay interest only for the first 10 years, and then it just becomes a loan. Now you got 20 years to pay that back. So the chances, it's gonna get recalled and you're just gonna wake up one morning and they want their money.
Like a balloon,
No,
like,
that's not gonna happen.
Okay, got it.
You don't need to worry about that.
And generally speaking, what's the spread between mortgage rates and HELOC? It's the same or?
No, so the HELOCs come in two varieties. One is gonna be a variable rate based on prime. It's usually about prime +1. And that's gonna fluctuate whenever the prime does, so that's okay. It's nothing to lose sleep over.
Can you explain what prime is?
The prime rate is, I don't know, some index that the banks like to use to benchmark things. Right now, it's currently 7 3/4.
8%.
8%? Yeah, so if you have a prime +1, then your HELOC would be at 9, but it's gonna float based on prime. So next year, when the prime goes down, then your HELOC rate will go down. 9%, that's not great. Don't be happy about that. But it's cheaper than anything else. A personal loan, credit cards, hard money. There's no other loan that's cheaper than a HELOC for quick, easy, flexible money.
And what's the second option you said?
Yeah, a fixed rate home equity loan. Instead of a line of credit, you can do a loan, but that's when you know how much you wanna borrow and you fix in the rate and then you have a payback schedule. The line of credit is kind of better because it's really flexible. You draw it up, pay it down, draw it up, pay it down. The loan is there just in case as a backup. You can convert any part of your balance to a loan at any time. And then fix the rate. But the rate's not great, so it's not a great
time.
All right, thank you, Dave. All right, so yeah, it's important to know these things as we're going into these next example. Let's see what the remote is. Alright, so we'll get into some data here. And then we can get into some deals that are on the market too, if you guys want. We can play deal or no deal. And be curious what everyone's perspective is from their, history in terms of where the market is, and I'll give you my 2 cents as well. So yeah, we'll zoom in here. All right, so this is the house I bought, right by Rico's. Yeah, it's, if you guys know where the 606 is, it's right at the end. I mean, here I can pull up the map of where it is. So this was 2 years ago. This is where we're at now, like right here. This is the 606 trail right here. So I bought in like West Logan, basically. This is Hermosa. This is Avondale. This is where the blue line is, and the highway here. We got Humboldt over here. Okay. So just to give you guys an idea of where we're at. All right. So there's a few things to note when you're breaking down these properties. So they were asking $439. It was on the market once, it fell through, it went on the market again. There was, I think, like 17 offers, something like that. I was like the 17th or 18th offer. I won. I'll tell you guys how I did that and how you guys should be offering as well in a competitive marketplace. Okay, so why a 2 flat? This is my first one. We'll go over the self-sufficiency test in a bit here. But what's great is for 2 units, there's no self-sufficiency test, right? From a lending standpoint. Okay, so there's a studio. It's a 1-1 and then a 2-1. This is what it looked like before. If you guys have any questions along the way, feel free to stop me.
What's a 2-1?
So this is the
What's a 2-1?
2-bed, 1 bath. Sorry.
Was this a legal 3-unit?
Great question. No, it's a 2-unit.
Oh, so was there a studio that was not conforming?
Yeah, well, it was a duplex.
Oh, okay.
So here, I'll show you guys, yeah. Yeah, it was a duplex that I took the stairs out and I sealed it off, right? So you guys can check it out. Right, this is the first floor. It's like sort of like a convertible kind of feel, but a 1-bedroom. This is a fake window. And I definitely brought that up during negotiation. Okay, this is the kitchen. This was the owner's unit. It was also a broker. So it was broker owned. I was a broker about to own it. It was a very hearty negotiation. So the kitchen was, okay, no dishwasher though. So, and then the bathroom needed a complete gut. This is the 2-bedroom. It's like in the attic. I think at some point this thing was like a single family. It's like not enormous overall, but it is, each unit has 2 separate entrances, except for the basement. So the second floor needed a complete gut. And then now we're down in the basement. They have like steel stairs leading down from the first floor down. And the basement needs a gut too. There's a balcony off the first floor and a 2-car garage. Okay? So let's look at the numbers now. Can you guys see this? Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's been a minute. This is more like 110, which I saved up all in cash because I'm an immigrant and I thought that's what you have to do. And if you grew up as an immigrant, you literally pay for everything. So if I knew the things I knew now, and the people in this room, how you can collaborate, things like that, when you learn about the art of finding the deal, you can do this nationwide, globally, right? I have an Airbnb, you can do this anywhere, right? If you start considering Airbnb for one of these line items, which we will, there's short-term, mid-term, long-term, there's HELOCs, cash out, refis, there's JVs, there's a lot to consider here, but depending on the rehab, like, just because the rehab is too big, that's what's gonna, cancel a lot of people out, like, oh, I don't have 6 figures for a rehab. But there's more than 6 figures in this room, there's more than 6 figures on Bigger Pockets, there's more than 6, you know what I mean? Like, if you just figure out how to structure the deal correctly, then you can find win-wins all over the place. That's why I'm not afraid to show you guys real life deals right after this, right? That you guys can all find on Zillow, scrolling right now, right? Because it's just the mechanics of the deal.
Can I ask you something?
Go ahead, we'll go over this one. This one's the one I just showed.
Okay, because I was looking at the 420, right? I wanted to ask you,
Yeah.
did you bet it under the value, what they was asking for? Like if it was 420,
right.
you probably gave them like maybe 375, something like that.
Yeah, so they're asking 439.
Okay.
I think I offered something like 4,
Mm-hmm.
with an escalation clause.
I got you.
So, does anyone here know what an escalation clause is? Yeah? Okay, good. So, I offered with an escalation clause, meaning, I think I offered like 400 with like a $5,000 escalation clause, no cap. And so, if another competing offer came in that like wasn't cash, it was like a similar offer. That also had a financing in place, no like weird contingencies, like a similar type offer. Then I would automatically beat it by $5,000. I get the call, congratulations, you have the property under contract. I mean, you are the winner of the bid, basically. Do you wish to accept? Your clients want to go under contract, and then the best part is there's no funny business. They have to show you the other contract. But they black out the info of like the names, right? So they block it out, but you get to see that it was a real offer.
Okay.
That escalated yours up. And then from there you can say, okay, let's go under contract, let's look under the hood, which is what I would recommend. Because from there you can further negotiate. And if you know the history of negotiations in Chicago, typically it happens while you're under contract. Why? The same reason, it's multiple offer on the front, and then it gets juicy on the back end, right? It's like, you can look at it, the history of the negotiations, majority happens there. Off market is a different story, but on market today, I'm sure you guys have heard, there's, it's the same climate, right? So yeah, the contract allows you the privilege of, getting the attorney working for you, the lender sending the appraiser out, getting your inspector out there, and your contractors, and all this, due diligence period, essentially, from a 360 perspective, to see if the property can pass. And interest rates change during that time, and that's also a contingency,
Yeah, so,
right? So it's like, you gotta make it work, and if you can't, you can sell or finance, you can sub to, you can do all these other strategies for a portion of it, right? Maybe the seller finances your rehab for you. You just gotta find the deal, right? Okay. So yeah, I think I did something like 400, and then I rolled my closing costs into the loan. Okay, I got a smoking rate, it was like 225. 3.5%. I'll show you guys deals in today's climate too, but I just wanted to go over this one. These are the actual taxes, and this is how much, well, the taxes are gonna go up. As you know, the taxes are going up, right? Especially if you did rehab.
Oh,
Did you ask for any seller credit back at closing?
Yeah. So I got I think like 30 to 40 grand in credits. Credit and or price reduction. And then I rolled it back in. Yeah. Okay, so this is the current rents for the one bed. $2,350. I'll show you guys the after, where I rehabbed it, right? This is what this 110 got me, right? This is how I deployed my capital and my time. And now I have all the contractors, the plumbers, like I have everyone that I know exactly where you would get the granite, everything, right? And this is how much that cost me, right? So you can learn online for free, but for me, it's like I learned now, I know how to do this for half the cost for twice as fast, right? So as everyone knows, it's like how it goes, right? And just as soon as I think I have it figured out, the market took a turn and I bought an Airbnb instead. So then I had to learn that, right? And I'll go over that one next too. And I'm happy to share my journey along the way, because you guys can see how powerful even just one of these are, and how it frees you up to then buy the next one literally once a year, just because of taxes alone. You want to consider purchasing property at least once a year, right? Let's see, hand go up now.
Oh, sorry, question. For your improvements, did you have one general contractor, or did you have separate people work on different things?
Yeah, I had a bunch of people come in. I was basically the GC on it. Yeah, sorry, in this flannel. And this cost me $100,000. This
Handyman.
Expensive flannel.
Or do I have one? Just complimenting your
Thank you
handiness.
very much. All right, cool. So, no, I'm joking, but yeah, you can hire a GC 100%, and that's part of the process, right? But then they sub it out, so you can. It's a whole nother spreadsheet, and I do have it, right? Of where I got everything, how much exactly I paid, and that can be a different meetup, and I can bring builders in here and my GCs, and they can tell you all about it, right? How much does a kitchen cost? How much does it cost to flip a bathroom? And you get to know these numbers in today's landscape. Just like interest rates. I wanna know granite. I wanna know kitchens. I wanna know all this stuff. Why? Because you need to for exactly this. Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment, if you, hiring out a GC could add 10 to 20% to your costs, so it just depends on, what your knowledge level is and what your time is worth. But 10 to 20% is typical for a GC.
Yeah, 100%. So, exactly, right? That's why there was no official GC. You'll see, you saw the before. We didn't have to do anything with permits. And I made sure of that because it was my first one. I didn't want to mess with any of that, right? So it was purely cosmetic. You'll see, I just did the kitchens, the floors, and the windows, right? So I'll show you guys the after, but I just want to go over these numbers real quick. So $2,350 for the one bed. I'm the highest one bed in my neighborhood. I'm surrounded by new construction. Okay? I'm the highest, I think I'm up there as the top 3 for the 2-bed. Simple Home Depot rehab. Any one of you guys can do it.
Why is your 2-bedroom cheaper than your 1-bed?
Because it's smaller. The 1-bed is dope. It's 1,000 square feet, balcony, fully upgraded. So it's got every upgrade. Laundry, dishwasher, can't be upgraded anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, now I'm just waiting for the neighborhood to catch up. There's nothing more I can do for the unit, right? It's you'll see, right? It looks like new construction inside.
Okay.
Yeah, so, but I knew that, right? You gotta know about color tones and what color do they want on the floors and the countertops, and you gotta give the people what they want. And I certainly learned that with Airbnb, right? Okay. So yeah, $2,250 for the 2-bed. And then I'm currently house hacking right here, right? So I'll show you guys the house hacking model, right? So, but I'm rehabbing it right now, right? So if I did rent it out once it's rehabbed, I think I can reasonably get $1,650, right? Because I'm gonna do it up just like these other two, which I'll show you in a second. There's move-in fees. This is broken down to a monthly perspective, but every time they move in and out, that's a money-making opportunity, right? That's part of the cost of doing business. Now, this does go towards costs, right? In terms of cleaners, handymen, for turnovers, right? But you gotta consider all the accrual methods that you have, down to coin laundry, right? But I don't do that. Because I ran the numbers, and it's more if you put it in unit, in my opinion, right? If you play it right. I guess it depends on the neighborhood, but for here, it played out. And I noticed that, the people that did have coin laundry, they also got less rent. It was just a lesser, and you guys we'll go into the comps as well. But you gotta deep dive all this data, right? And you gotta keep all these numbers honest. And when I ran the numbers, I ran this at $1,500 one bed, $1,800 two bed, $1,200 studio, and it still shook out, right? So that's the deals that I take, the ones that are highly, highly, highly conservative. Those are the only deals that I even look at, right? Before I even would consider making an offer. There's pet fees, and then $200 for each parking spot. So pretty straightforward there. As far as OpEx, operating expenses, these are the taxes that I beef those up, yeah. So I bought it at 4. I think my guys are appealing it, but I think they're bringing it up to like whatever. Still cash flows, right? It can double again and it'll cash flow. It could double one more time and it can cash flow. It's not ideal, but I looked at hundreds of deals before I picked this one, just so you guys know, right? Insurance, this is my actual insurance. Maintenance, everything's new. Everything's under warranty. That's what the 110 got me, right? Gas, electric, they pay. Water, garbage, I pay. Cleaning, snow removal, landscaping. If you're gonna do this, just add it in. I mean, if you're not gonna do this, just add it in. No HOA, turnovers, again, you gotta add that in. You know, I'm a broker, so there's no leasing fees, no renewal fees. I'm managing it myself, but if you're not, add it in, okay? But you want juicy deals, that way you could add it in. That's a good exit, right? Maybe you got tired of it, whatever. So if you wanna go more conservative, beef it up. I mean, you can put $1,000 here, it'll still cash flow. But these are realistic numbers, in my opinion. Okay, we can get into, so this is total expenses. This
You
is-
have all these.
This is what you're gonna see. Huh?
Sorry, just out of curiosity, do you have all these numbers kind of in place before you made an offer? Like,
Oh, yeah.
just so you had an idea of what your return on investment was gonna be?
Yeah, so I audit just like this before I even go to a place. There's about 500 multi-units, in my opinion, that are, you know, in the areas that I'm talking about here. There's more if you expand, you know, and that's just Illinois, so you gotta consider what you do. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
So any questions so far? I know there's a lot of numbers. First time I saw this, I was like, what? It's different colors. What's going on?
How's your turnover so cheap? At $50, is that what you?
The turnover, well, the turnover is paid for by the movement fees.
And the movement fees, okay, that's.
Yeah, so, whatever, you can play around with it is my point, right? Some of this stuff is annual, it's one time, I'm trying to like get you guys the gist of it, right? But the point is, right here, that there's plenty of cash flow. Alright, so, let's take a look at this deal.
Is that monthly?
Hmm?
Is that monthly?
That's monthly, my friend. Yeah.
Okay.
This is if I live there, which I do. So for the privilege of living for free, I'm getting paid $2,000 a month. It's called house hacking, down the street from right here, right? Now, in today's interest rate, what are we looking at, 7, right? It would be considerably less, but I would be okay even at 0 here. Right? Okay. Just gonna get some water real quick. I'll be right back. 1 second.
The interest rate changed a lot in the numbers.
We're getting beat up.
5% versus 7.5%. The bank is getting paid.
You know, possibility to buy 3 years down the line, you lower your risk levels and your cash flow goes
It's
up.
100 now, my partner retired last year.
That's true. I mean, you're still building equity anyway, right?
So this month is no deals.
Dang, I guess
so
after I'm done with this industry, like I'm good to go.
at a very high
Oh, yeah.
level.
No, no more industry. I'm only 7 years in. Like, I'm already.
Last year you couldn't buy, you could throw money at it.
So there's a lot of offers going in there.
Yeah. So we're
Yeah.
yeah, we're
Closing in 2 days.
Any seller loves a cash buy, right?
The deal is there.
Yeah, right now it's like that's pretty hard.
Yeah, we ever come get each other. Or CHFA.
I've been looking at two places for a while. I've been looking at two places, they've been on the market for a while.
Right, I was trying to get a photo.
I guess people are offering, but like they're not what they want.
I can't always wholesale everything.
She'll like take it off the market.
One was a
Also very personal. Some people are very handy and very comfortable.
That's true.
They pay a little bit more money.
All right, guys, we'll get back into it.
Don't worry about it. Buy your
All right, guys, so let's go over this box. This is probably the most important box. You know, it sums it all up, you know, in terms of what you can expect, right? So just back to this deal. This is the deal from 2 years ago, right? So what I did was I bought it, 60 days later it was rehabbed and leased, fully leased. 60 days after that I think it was like 60 or, yeah, right around 60 days after that I refinanced, right? Why? Because I knew interest rates were going up, right? Otherwise I probably would have, you know, taken my time a little bit more, ideally. It's a pretty quick turnaround, especially for your first one, right? Yeah, go ahead.
So the first 60 days, did you, how did you structure like the payment on the mortgage for the first 60 days?
Yeah, so it's paid in arrears, the mortgage payment. So you get like at least 1 month for free, and that kind of gives you runway for, you know, for the rehab. For my purchase after this one, I pushed it 2 months. So you can negotiate that with your lender. So you can give yourself 60 days until the mortgage starts to be paid. Sometimes you can just pay interest only, and then, you know, so it goes up from there. Yeah, hope that answers it. Yeah, okay. All right, so yeah, so I got the appraisal, came back, I think it was like 650, right? And then I didn't cash out refi, instead I cashed in and I kept it in the property, right? And then I got 20% down. And then I'm now, I think I'm at like 3.5. Okay? So, you know, I bought it just a few months later, I'm in a 20% equity position. I paid PMI one time that my tenants paid for, not me, right? And then no more PMI. If I listen to, like, you know, kind of advice from people that I knew, PMI was like a big no-no, right? And if I listen to them, I mean, yeah, I paid PMI, but, you know, it's like I did it and my tenants did. It's like, you know, if you know your options, you can look at more deals, right? So, and then also I got real creative. Like I took out, it was duplex, right? So I took out the stairs and I sealed it off. And then I'm occupying the illegal unit. So there's only one, you know, entrance and exit. So when I leave, I'm gonna duplex it again and Airbnb it, right? So, you know, we can run the numbers on that too. But you could have bird it, which a lot of people would also, I think, you know, want to talk about. It would be a little bit harder in today's climate because of the interest rate, right? So you can look at it how you want in terms of, you know, capital, but I kept it in the property because, I don't know, I didn't need that payday. Why? Because I got really good at playing defense and I got real good at living off $1,000 a month, basically, right? So like if this went down to like 1,000, because there's no car payment, there's no house payment, you know what I mean? Oh, I also, yeah, minimalism, then I went vegan for a long time. Meat is actually, I 80/20'd like my, you know, receipt every month at Rico's. I was like, oh, meat is the most expensive part of every meal everywhere. And so I just 80/20'd it out, right? Not just because of that, you know, obviously there's a lot of health reasons and all that, but what a great side effect, you know? And so you can literally 80/20 to your comfort level, like out of like whatever, you know, if you need cash flow, you know, if you can get it lower, you can look at more deals, which is what I'm hoping for you guys to do. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 questions. So first, kind of what you're saying of like the cash in refi. So you started 3.5, forced appreciation, got up to like, were you above 20? And then you could like take some money out and then leave it at 20 so you don't get any, like, or you don't have to have PMI anymore? Like, were you above 20 and then you pulled out some money? Or?
I know I was above 20 and I just kept it in. So I'm actually more than 20. It's like more like 25. It's more now.
So then your down payment, like your monthly's just so much lower if you're above 20%, or like why would, like you didn't need any of the money? So
I didn't need any money, yeah.
And
so.
What would you do now? Because like during this deal, you knew interest rates were going down, but or going up, but right now they might be going down. So like would that change, or if you were doing this now, the interest rates could be going down when you're gonna refi?
Yeah, so I would get creative on, if I had to do this again, I would get creative on this, and I would bring in partners on this. On all this. This is the total cash outlay. This is a pretty big monthly pop. I'm not a, greedy person. It's like, how many people would love, who wants 10%? Cool. Who wants another 10%? Cool. You know what I mean? So, and then you take down more doors, and then you could refi against the portfolio. Now you're talking. Okay. Yeah, but great questions. What actually happened was, to be honest, it was really fucking hard, and it's still really hard. And whoever tells you otherwise in Chicago, whoever's shopping in Chicago, which I assume most of you guys are, it's fucking hard. It's probably why you're here, right? So there's a few ways that I would look at it. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to ask you one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
How long did it take you to save up your money to get your first property?
For this amount, all
Yes.
this? Well, okay, so I did 3.5. I think it was like about 100. Well, so, I was in debt. So I don't know if I told you guys my story, but I was like negative 50, right? I was 50 in debt, but I started 2 businesses, right? And it was like, that's what I did. I put it all on credit. It probably wasn't, the wisest thing, but that's what I did. That's what ended up kind of happening. Now the businesses run lean. I wasn't running lean, right? And so like I was, like the businesses were fine, and then I had to take a look at myself and consider myself as a business as well, and really justify if I can, literally eat away my retirement, by going out to eat, right? And so like, when I realized that it saves me twice versus earning, and this is a tax incentive as well, it's like a no-brainer. But we're here to talk about stocks, crypto, everything, right? Like bring it all in. Just realize some things are taxable, some things aren't, and kind of, what the overarching portfolio construction is, right? And what kind of money you want coming in. This is a long-term model. Let's get into short-term. You guys want to see some returns? Like, all right, let's see. This is where I'm at. So the question is, if I do this, $4,000, can I get more if I duplex it or if I separate it, right? This is always like the classic question. Do I duplex it? Do I separate it? It depends. It all depends, right? So you got to run your numbers, and you got to run them on, AirDNA. There's a bunch of different, websites for the Airbnb side to this that show you comps similarly to the rent side of this, right? Where you can justify the rents. And then here, I didn't go into this blind hoping for 650. There was plenty of data showing that. It was a really easy appraisal. He was in and out. He was like, yep, surrounded by new construction. Leases are the highest in the area. He laughed. He's like, you can get higher. I was like, I know, I'm a broker. If I sold this right now, it's a turnkey cash cow. Who wouldn't pay for this? Who wouldn't? If I was underwater for whatever reason and someone called, they would be able to take over this mortgage if they asked me correctly, right? And the equity. That's money that I could finance back to them, right? If you just position yourself in front of the right people.
When you sell property and they take over your mortgage, they take your interest rate as well? I thought they would take another interest rate.
Sorry, one more time.
When you sell your property and you don't own it completely, and you could sell them your mortgage as well at the interest rate that you got?
So no, so this is 2 separate things, right? This is seller financing. Actually, Jeff, you wanna
Chime in?
give the lowdown?
Sure.
Yeah.
So what he's referring to is something called subject to the mortgage. You're actually not even assuming it, you're actually going on title, right? And there's a couple ways to structure this in order to not initiate the due on sale clause for a typical mortgage loan. But most people, what they would do is they quit claim deed it into a trust, name a beneficiary, you strike a deal with the buyer, that beneficiary then becomes the next buyer, right? And then that person now takes over your loan payments. Now, they structure it on a kind of two different ways as well. Sometimes some people are underwater and there's like, I can't handle the mortgage payments anymore. I'm 10K behind. They're about to foreclose on me. I'm about to get foreclosure and bankruptcy. It's like, this is something that they're willing to do. The buyers are like, well, what is your interest rate? Oh, I have like a 3.2, right? They can literally take over your loan payment, get in at a good interest rate. Now, but let's say his property, phenomenal property, he's not underwater, he wants a certain number, right? He still has a note in place, but he also has equity. There's two things that kind of happen, right? One, the next buyer could take over his mortgage payments, right? And then the equity, he could seller finance that to the buyer. So what is seller finance? Easy way to explain it, if I own a property free and clear, instead of you going to the bank to get a loan, why don't I give you a loan? Right? Instead of the bank earning interest, why don't I earn interest? Right? Because it's just a promissory note, it's not an actual exchange of actual hard cash. Right? You might come down with a down payment, take over my mortgage note, and also make seller payments to me. Now typically in that scenario though, you'll take a second lien position on that property because the mortgage still is gonna have first.
The seller will put a second lien on it?
The seller will take a second lien position on it if they're gonna seller finance the rest of it. So sometimes they call that a hybrid, right? It's gonna be subject to the mortgage is what they're doing. You're taking over, the buyer's taking over your mortgage payments and interest rate. But then, hey, I still want another 100K. Instead of the guy just paying you out 100K, well, I'll seller finance you 100K at 5% interest rate. And we'll say like for 5 years, 10 years, you can negotiate however. It's all just negotiation. So some buyers, what they want is they want a low down payment and then try to stretch out that payment for as long as they can if they want to hold on to the property, right? Sometimes they'll hold it for 2 years and refinance that seller out completely. So that kind of makes sense. Should I just give an example?
Yeah. This is good stuff, man. You guys want to hear about this?
Yeah.
So this is a property that we got under contract in Portage Park. It's a 4-unit, currently under contract. So beautiful building, beautiful brick, original wood finishes. You don't get these type of constructions in Chicago. So little history. If you're wondering why Greystones, some brick buildings are super in high demand, because when the European immigrants came to this city, that kind of work in skilled labor doesn't really exist like it does today, right? So, beautiful 4-unit, 2-bed, 1-baths, all 4 units, vintage, open space, great, right? But the seller wanted pretty much $900K for the property. It wasn't worth $900K, and they actually only bought it 4 years ago, and they bought it for about $700,000. Right? If you think about it, the property was maybe worth about $800K, but if they sold it on the market at $800K plus closing costs, they're gonna walk away with very little for what they paid for, right? So this is how we structured it. Sellers were old, tired being landlords. They want to spend time with their grandkids, right? Buyer didn't want to have to get a new loan to buy this property. So this is actually something a little bit unique. The seller's position is actually taking a position called a wraparound mortgage. So seller's actually keeping their mortgage in place and being responsible for those mortgage payments. Then on top of that, she's selling the property to my buyer for $810,000 on a seller note, a seller finance. So there's pretty much gonna be 2 notes on this property, but the mortgage still's in place, but it's only gonna be for 2 years. So my buyer, because he's an investor, he can't do a 5 5% down payment, you know, he's not gonna live in it. He has to get an investment type loan, right? So typically you would have to bring 20 or even 25% to the table. 800K and easily 200K, right? But we structured it so he only had to bring 100K to the table, down payment, right? And then we actually structured it as well. During those 2 years when she's still responsible for making her payments, he promises to pay her equal or greater in monthly payments to her during that time as well. During this 2-year period, the buyer's gonna have enough time to go in there, update all those units, raise the rents, and then refinance her out within that 2-year time frame. So, also understanding when you want to do this type of strategy, typically you're gonna want something what they call a seasoning period. Seasoning period means like they wanna see rental income coming in for at least 6 months typically. There's some lenders that'll do 3 months, but it's kinda it. Typically 6 months worth of rental income coming in. Then they're like, oh, okay, your rents have gone up $200-300 for each unit. That's another potential $1,200 a month coming in there. You think about a whole year, right? That ends up being some serious numbers to your bottom line. Either way, that's how we structure that deal. We should be closing in June. And then, yeah, then I'll give you another example.
So what was the actual purchase price on that example?
Actual purchase price was $810,000. So the way it worked out for her, because he's paying her an equal amount to her mortgage payment, technically she's like having 2 years of mortgage payments that are paying down her principal a little bit. So it's gonna get her a little bit more than 810 when she goes to exit. But she just kinda wanted 100K right now, gets her comfortable. But this is why it takes strong negotiations and relationship building with the seller, because she needed to know that he could execute on this deal. So, you know, luckily my buyer is also one of my partners. We took her pretty much around, because he likes Portage Park, Jefferson Park. We showed her all the projects that he's currently doing right now. So it gave her confidence in getting that deal done. Now, if you don't have a bunch of projects to kind of like show off and prove that you can do the job, then you just gotta negotiate better, negotiate a little bit harder. So that's one example. And then the other example I'm closing in 2 weeks is actually 4 single-family homes in Southside Chicago. Seller wanted money. So like in these situations is what did the seller want? Yeah, it's money, but why do they want the money, right? And this is how we figured it out. First, he wanted 100K down. Wasn't gonna work. Properties weren't worth that much, and for what he wanted to do, he actually just needed about 50K to go start his next project, which was Sober Homes. But he actually knew his homes, if he put it on the market, wasn't going to sell for the number that he wanted. Plus, they were all tenant occupied, so it has to be an investor. Now, when you put something on the market and you're marketing to investors, your whole pool of buyers is dropped significantly because it's not a potential first-time home buyer or owner-occupant, right? So these 4 properties were restructured. My buyer was actually gonna pay him $50,000 down payment, and then we're gonna subject to all 4 of those mortgages into the buyer's name. And then at the end of 12 months, buyer's just gonna give him another 20K. So he got close to the 100K, but in total 70K within a 12-month period, 50K to start. And then my buyer is actually getting 4 cash flowing single family homes, all with a 3-point-something% interest rate. So it takes a lot of, so like these types of deals, it's not as well talked about, like, but they're legitimate deals. They can happen. You just need sometimes the right attorneys to understand how to structure it. Sometimes fresh attorneys won't really know, but these are legitimate deals. If you guys are wondering where seller finance became popular, 80s. I'm sure you guys, sorry, I don't want to age you guys, but 80s. Right?
Got him.
80s.
No soup
the
for you,
highest
huh?
interest rate hit 18%. Who in the world wanted to pay it? Sellers are like, well, why? Like, and some of them had owned their properties free and clear, right? They had bought it in the 50s, maybe 40s. They've already paid it all off, made their mortgage payments, right? They own it free and clear. Like why? Like I'll give you an 8% interest rate. 10, that would have been great, right? On the home. So
There's
instead
no
of you
risk.
getting a loan,
What's the risk for seller finance as a seller?
what's the risk for the seller and buyer? Well, risk for the seller is if in case the buyer defaults. Now you have to start a foreclosure process, right? But you can also structure into that contract a performance clause, right? Let's say that you could literally, because this is contract law, and then you can write it up. Again, talk to an attorney though, because I'm not an attorney. But for example, some of the investors that I know, that they're actually going to put themselves more at risk of losing the property if they don't perform, in order to get a great deal from the seller. So let me kind of go backwards. Hey seller, I think your house is worth 150, but I know you want that 200K price tag. How about this? If I'm willing to give you 200K, are you willing to give me terms? And in fact, can I purchase your home with 0% down payment? And I'll start making monthly payments to you. And you could structure this, hey, give me 3 months before I can make my first payment to you. Some of them may want to, some of them are most likely going to want some down payment up front, first mortgage after 1 month, but that's all negotiations. But to kind of sweeten the pot, let's say you negotiated first month and you tell them, hey, if I default after 90 days, you don't even have to foreclose on me. We'll write it in the contract, property will revert back into your name. So it's just like, you, as the buyer, you have to perform, but then you're gonna negotiate really hard on a great deal. Because then you believe in your ability to get the deal done, but giving the seller assurance in case you default, right? But then obviously you're gonna set yourself up with some safeguards, some cure periods in case you default. You might have a week, 2 weeks, 3 days, however much you can negotiate to, get back on track. But yeah.
I think this is kind of like a little off topic, but if you can't pay your mortgage and never owned property before, what happens? Like either if it's house hacking or it's just like a single condo has a single family house. Like I don't even know what happened. Like,
Can I just chime in?
Yeah.
It depends who your lender is. If it's a private lender, different things happen. If it's a bank, different things happen. So I just wanted to chime in. It depends on who the lender is. But you
Mortgage
can-
lender, talk to your bank, keep communication with them. That's the best thing you can do. The worst thing you can do is not talk to them. Because if you're not talking to them, then they're like, well, here's your notice of default. Here's your court order. And they're gonna start that foreclosure process if you're not communicating with them. But here's a cool fact most people don't realize: banks don't want to foreclose on you. They want their money. They want their interest. Like they're not in the business of real estate, right? They're in the business of lending money. So if they have to go through the whole process of foreclosing on you, which takes money, and then going to auction, right, and then selling, getting that property off of their books, that's a process they don't want to do, right? Now, different from, as he was saying, private money or hard money, those guys, they'll foreclose on you on a heartbeat because it's all about a deadline and interest rate, because typically it's their hard-earned money ready to go. Let me kind of explain the difference between private money and hard money. Hard money is still kind of like a little bit of an institution. They still have appraisals. Private money, typically it's someone personal and it's their actual own piggy bank.
I just meant the seller as private financing. That's what I meant.
Yeah.
I didn't mean the bad stuff.
But like hard money, you fix and flippers typically use. Private money is relationships that you have, so you can use them for all different types of strategies. Like that's a whole nother subject. I hope I didn't take too much of your time.
No, it's dope, right? It's good stuff, right?
You been sharing your Airbnb?
Yeah, I have a deal that's you guys could buy right now. If you guys want me, look at that. I'm curious your take on it, because it does require a bit of a rehab, right? But it's in a great area and it's got my attention. as do 10 other ones, but this is my favorite, right? So there's not a lot. Out of hundreds, these are like the 10 that I might, consider on market. When you consider going off market, now that's the question, right? How do you back into these deals? Are they typically on market or off market?
My deals are typically off market.
Right. So that's the thing, right? We're looking at on market deals. You can find great deals, but they're going to be like 10 out of hundreds, right?
There's gonna be a lot of competition too, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And the art of tying up a deal is, you gotta know what you're doing. You gotta know how much wiggle room you have and, how it operates. At what point are you in the power position, at what point are you not? And act accordingly. So yeah, I can go over the Airbnb if you want.
No, you wanted to show this first, right? The 9
Yeah, it'll take me a second. Let me get this one going. Technical difficulties. Sorry about that. Last week my fob didn't work, now this. Any questions so far? You guys have never heard about seller financing or subject to? I mean, that's a lot to unpack. That alone should have your attention, especially when everyone's schwitzing about 7% interest rate, right? So I guess let's have a raise of hands. Who's looking for house hack actively? Yeah. Okay.
Position, sometimes the luck of the draw, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do to capture the property. And if you miss a couple of possible refi opportunities because you got too aggressive on your purchase, was that worse than not buying at all? Maybe not. So there's no mathematical answer. It's simply a matter of you buy, you do what you gotta do to buy.
Yeah.
Then over the years, you hope for the best, and in the long run, you're not gonna care whether you overpay for the property or not. If you keep the property 20 years, you're not gonna care if you overpaid by 20 grand. It's not gonna matter at all. I bought most of my property before the Great Recession.
Okay.
And it's all just finally coming back. I mean, I'm running on, 18 years, 17 years or 15 years to get back to where I was pre-crash.
Okay.
But I didn't care because my rents kept going up. So my equity position didn't affect me. I didn't care. I didn't want to sell, and the rents were going up. So it worked out. You just ride it out. And my rates are crazy low, so I'm not gonna leave.
All right, guys, let's circle back here. We gotta wrap it up at 9:30, okay? So this is the Airbnb that I bought because the market took a shit and I couldn't buy a multi in it. And everything was like, I couldn't find anything that was like really what I wanted, right? In terms of, an opportunity that was on the market. And that's when you really got to turn to off market, right? And get creative. So you can be looking at all your options. So I keep emphasizing this. There's nothing stopping you guys from door knocking along the 606, right? This is where everyone wants to be, along Milwaukee, call for sale by owners, for rent by owners, and reverse engineer the deal that you guys want, right? So This is the spot. In terms of where it is, let me show you. You guys see this map? It's right off of Milwaukee. So this is Milwaukee, just straight down the street. We're over here. It's over here, which in my opinion is the next big intersection to pop. So I got that going for me on the refi side, right? So I got a built-in hedge. How else can you hedge? How else can you force equity? A rehab. How else can you force equity? The seller buys down your fucking points. Help me out, it's a recession. Right? Like, why not? Right? You have to be able to negotiate appropriately to make the deals work. But in theory, every deal has a price and terms that could make it work. So when you accept that, then it's just like, the rest is just education and execution, right? Which is what this is all about. Jeff and I will both tell you, like, we can get hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of off-market deals today, right? So there's nothing stopping you guys from going after, you know, what it is that you want. You just have to know what your risk threshold is. But at the end of the day, if you can beat your stock strategy, I would say go for it. It has to be a minimum, that ROI. But this spreadsheet, what it doesn't, you know, look at is the tax benefits as well. So when you really add that in, it's like a no-brainer. It's just a no-brainer, right? When I bought my duplex, I paid like nothing in taxes that year almost, because I paid myself a reasonable salary as an employee of my own company. My company paid me a salary, and then my rehab was like triple that, right? And it was like, all right, and I bonus appreciated it, right? Because I classified as a real estate investor, full time, which is a, you know, hefty designation that you should consult with your CPA on, but if you can do that, yeah, for sure. For years, I was real estate professional, and then I did real estate investor when I was ready to ring that bell, right?
Could you do that as a first-time buyer? Like if you're occupying as well, like classify as a real estate investor?
I believe you can, but I would consult a CPA. I think it all depends on, I think the LLC may have to be open for like 6 months.
Okay.
So yeah, it just depends. I would consult on them in terms of timeline, but yeah.
You mentioned something about seller can buy down your points. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, they can buy down your points.
What
The lender
point?
can give you credit to
Okay,
buy
I'm
down
not
your
familiar.
points.
I'm not familiar with points. So can you kind of?
The points on the interest rate.
Oh, okay.
Right on my interest rate point.
Okay.
My bad, yeah. The points is in percentage.
Okay.
Yeah. Good to see it. Yeah.
Something, I just wanted to touch base on something you said before. Coming from a choose life perspective, would you say that based on the equity that you have, cash in your savings account or high yield savings account, that if you can't beat 10% index funds, then you shouldn't go allocate that money into real estate? Is that what you were saying before? Something along those lines?
Sorry, can you run that one more time?
If you're trying to if you're deciding what you're going to do with your money in your portfolio,
Yeah.
and the real estate can't be 10%, which is the average in terms of index funds, UTSAX.
Yeah.
Then you would say don't do the real estate deal if you can't beat 10%. Is that would that be a? Is that what you were referring to? Like if you can't expect a 10% return on investments, then don't do the real estate.
Well,
deal.
this is my return on my Airbnb, so I wouldn't accept less than 10.
Percentage. Oh well, that's not normal.
Why?
Okay, whatever. Maybe.
I don't understand.
Well, so.
There's zero opportunities, there's zero down, there's a ton of opportunities, dude. Yeah, man.
Well, that's active versus passive. An index fund is passive, that's active.
Oh, 100%. I mean,
He's gotta watch that, he's gotta manage it, he's gotta know what to do, he's gotta make decisions. An
100%.
index fund, no decisions. Armchair.
Yeah, I mean, I do both.
It's apples and
That's
oranges.
bottom line, is I do both, yeah.
Speaking of both.
Yeah, you do it all. I mean, that's, you know, and then the data would tell you where to double down based on the research, based on where it's going. That's what these meetups are about.
What does your portfolio split look like?
This is it, I just showed you. So in terms of real estate, it's these two. And then, yeah, that's what you asked, like investment breakdown.
Like crypto, stock,
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, so mainly I just do index funds, but, you know, I, you know, would want to dabble probably in crypto more, and maybe individual stocks, options down the line. It all has my attention. I just see there's a lot of opportunity in the real estate market in the next 5 years, and I can foresee making way more in that than betting it on some coin or what have you. And then even if I did bet on that coin, what would I have learned?
No Dogecoin?
Can I replicate that? Can I do that? Can I teach that to my future daughter? Like, absolutely not. But I can give her a house. I can give her a portfolio.
Yeah.
You know, I can give her a reasonable wage. Through that, you know, it's all write-offs, right? You can get into that with it. Yeah, you can write off your kids. All right, yeah. All right, so let me show you this, right? So 10%, yeah. But if you're gonna be flexible, I would consider it. What most people do is they take a look at one spreadsheet and they're like, oh, I don't want it. It's not what I'm looking for. It's like, this is a moment in time, right? This is assuming that, it's like assumptions in place, right? And the reason I like this one is because it plays it out year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. And this is your return on equity, right? And so it's built up on, it's your equity accrual, right? And this is very important as well. Because this whole time you're paying off your loans. So my point is, people want it too soon, but if you're in it for the long haul, you just know what your exits are. It's options that you can take. Similarly to the stock market, right? If it just depends, right? If the price goes up to this, then I'll refinance, because then it'll make sense, right? But the whole time you're actualizing tax benefits versus not. Because every year there's expenses, which we just went over.
I'm sure you could go into that.
The other answer to his question is because of leverage. You can leverage real estate.
Yeah, 100%.
That's why the ROIs are so high, because of leverage.
Yeah, so let's talk
One of
about
the easiest investments.
Let's talk about this one real quick. Then we got to wrap it up. I'm flying out to Mexico in the morning to go surfing, so that's also what this is all about, right?
Can we go in?
Yeah. Why not? I'm going for free. You guys shouldn't be paying for travel. I haven't paid for travel in years. You know, just pay through it all with credit card points that my business has earned on auto, right? So you guys should all be dabbling in that. There's a down payment right there. Hotels and rental cars and flights, right? Okay, cool. So let's get into this one real quick. So this one was different. It was a down payment of 5%. What do you guys want to see? You guys want to see the house first? Like how I bought it?
So this is an Airbnb?
Yeah. This is what it looked like when I bought it. I bought all the furniture with it. Nice. Because I asked. That was it. So, that was a huge mistake. I ended up using 0 of it. I had to pay 2 guys to go through it all out. Damn. 2 very, very, very strong men. And I could have flipped it on Facebook Marketplace and this and that, but dude, I was busy, like, literally, you'll see, like, picking out everything else. I was like, I can't, I need this out of the property. And I just couldn't deal with it. But at some point, all this was for sale. So yeah, this is the spot. I walk through, I know the neighborhood, I know Milwaukee. I'm like, all right, it's the next biggest intersection. That's got it going for it. It's Avondale, right? It's right on the border of Logan Square and Avondale. Mm-hmm. Just over, it's got 5 to 10 years. I like that. I like 5 to 10. Portage, Jefferson, Albany, maybe 10 to 20, right? Over here, it's already here. Wicker, Bucktown, you're already competing, right? If you go to where the puck is going, where the blue line is going, where you guess, that's where it's going, right? And yeah, there's opportunities east as well, but in my opinion, not as good. It's really, really, really much harder out there because the rental demand is just way higher here than out there, in my opinion. So that goes for the same as you know, Chicago's a different, I mean, it's just such an expansive city. When I say Chicago, everyone here thinks of a different Chicago, right? So it's like, it's kind of hard to encompass it, but mainly I'm talking about this pocket here. So yeah, I mean, it's just a, you know, family lived here. They're moving to they moved to Portugal. They're like, we're out. I'm going to Portugal next month in 2 weeks.
For free.
For 100%. Yeah, so I'm gonna go surf there. They have 100-foot waves, but I'm not going when it's high season, so. All right, we'll run through this real quick. Boom. You know, cut that.
Did you have to rehab anything?
I did keep that. I kept that.
That's nice.
That was the only thing I kept.
Did you have to rehab any of this?
No, check it out.
Alright. Pretty nice.
Painted it. Burnished it.
But this is it now.
That's what the.
This is it, man. You can go rent this right now.
Damn.
So all
This
the
is my hotel,
furniture-
guys. Please support local.
So all the furniture that you replaced, is it just because that's what tenants or, I guess, you know, whoever stays Airbnbs, that's what they want? They want that, not what.
This is what the people want.
Yeah.
Mid-modern century.
They wanted this shiny stuff. They
How did
wanted
you
this.
figure that out? Did you like just look at similar properties or like how did you know that, like what?
Yeah. I looked at hundreds of photos. And then I went to all these different websites, Amazon, Etsy, Wayfair, stuff I wish I never knew existed. You know, going from house hacking a basement to this, I was like, this is really hard for me. Not, you know, especially as a minimalist, I was like, this is really painful for me to like purchase this much on Amazon. Just didn't sit well, right?
Those orange napkins are nice though.
Thanks, man. World Market, $6.99. Anywho, you know, it's a mix of Amazon and whatever, you know, but basically, man, it was like going there, most popular kitchen table, going there, most popular fork, going there, most popular. There's a lot of that. And there's, quite frankly, hundreds of items to consider.
Thanks, Don.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to see you again, man.
See you later.
Bye.
This is what the people wanted. I noticed that this neon sign, literally, you got a higher rate.
Probably.
So I told my guy, he said, no problem. It's all at Home Depot. Boom. You know, I certainly don't have this in my house. I mean, now I do. Yeah.
Did you make this in your private residence?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my mail goes here. But I'm in, I'm not even in the country now. I'm Airbnb. And then I want to buy an Airbnb, you know, globally. So I'm looking at Costa Rica right now. Just got off the phone with a guy that has 1,000 acres out there. It's a completely different CMA. He goes, you want a beach or a mountain? I go, what do you mean? He goes, the mountain's for sale. I'm like, how much do mountains go for? He goes, you want an island? This shit's for sale. The world is for sale, right? You can seller finance an island. Stay tuned, right? It's like, who knows?